She was up here singing during the sound check with her baby boy in her arms. And I thought, how wonderful would it be if we could pass on the message to every child walking the face of the planet that you're not defined by the circumstances, but you're defined by the hero within. That there is a light and a power and a goodness and a godness and an essence within you that is so miraculous and brave and courage that there's nothing that you can face that you cannot move through. Yes? So, pretty interesting week, huh? There's a lot of emotions this week. There's a lot of people in the country that are feeling sad right now. There's a lot of people that are feeling hopeful right now. There's people that are feeling angry. There's people that are feeling relieved. There's people that are feeling frustrated. And there's people that are feeling afraid. It's all interesting. That's all. I'm going to stand back from a distance and go, isn't this interesting? Yesterday, I helped the Ernst family say goodbye to their beloved matriarch, Sue. The daisies you see here are a part of that service. And I wanted to have Sue represented here because she knew that hero-ness. She knew that essence that transcended the chaos, that transcended the darkness, that transcended the frustration and the argument. She would always stand back, and she knew everything's okay. Everything's going to be okay. No matter the emotions that we're feeling, no matter the thoughts that we're holding, that everything is going to be okay. We are at a point of choice as individuals, as a church, and as a nation of how we're going to react to all the feelings, to all the emotions, mine and yours and the entire nation. How we react is more important than the feeling itself. How we respond is the most important thing because by our divine teachings, what we are thinking, what we are feeling, and what we are holding create and they manifest. So be mindful. But let me be real clear. It's the same thing I told the Ernst family yesterday. Feel what you need to feel. That it is acceptable here. It is safe here to feel those feelings, to know those thoughts, and to express them, knowing that you are surrounded by people who are safe, that may think completely differently than you and feel completely differently than you, but it is a safe place where we can come and we can work it all out. And your emotions and my emotions and your thoughts and my thoughts, your belief system, my belief system, your understanding of God, my understanding of God, your understanding of the United States and my understanding of the United States somehow becomes this great melting pot where we prove what is possible, where we prove that we don't have to think all alike in order to still follow a path of kindness and love and compassion. Yes? I'm proud to belong to a country and a church that can prove that principle. Are you? Yes. We have just completed an election process. And that election process was rife with emotion and stress and opinion and judgment, hope, and a lot of prayer, and 1,000 different things. All of it is a magnificent symbol. Every bit of it is an incredible symbol of what it means to be a republic, what it means to be a democracy called the United States. The United States. The divine idea in the minds of the founding fathers and mothers of being united and proving a principle and an ideal. Something that has gone nowhere. It's the same principle that existed last week as it does today. Today, I am way less concerned about who won an election, and I'm way more concerned with the veterans, the people that stood up just a moment ago, who have assured the freedom of the electoral process that we enjoy. With all the thoughts, with all the feelings and all the emotions about that process, whether it works or it doesn't work, whether it needs to be changed or it needs to remain solid, we still live in a country where our feelings can be expressed. We still live in a nation where we can share out loud our feelings, our thoughts, our opinions, where our voice can be heard and can freely express all the emotion, all the judgment, all the opinions. Today, on this Veterans Day weekend, I'm saying let's keep utilizing that right and speak up, but do so with a Christ presence. Do so with love and light and oneness driving the boat, not anger, not hatred. Anger can be present, but so can love at the same time. A lot of people say love and anger cannot exist in the same field. I've seen it done. I've done it. I can treat you with the love and respect that you are due and still be angry about whatever happened out here. We can never, as Unity students, give up that right, that ability, because otherwise we are a house built on sand. The spiritual principles that we espoused last Sunday, and I think it's up behind me, right? Let's read it. The spiritual principles we espoused last Sunday are still true this Sunday. I want you to digest that. I want you to breathe that in, drink it in, and say it again, and let it speak to the soul and the Christ in the light of who you are. Together, the spiritual principles we espoused last Sunday are still true this Sunday. They don't change. They are absolute in their nature. The ideas of oneness, of compassion and love and kindness and understanding are still as true today as they were last Sunday. Breathe that in. Today, I am asking us to be among the thought leaders that create a United States, because it doesn't feel so united right now. A united unity north. A united humanity, even when it is difficult, even when it is dark, even when you are afraid, even when you are angry, even when you are frustrated. I'm asking us to, as a community of faith, to suspend all the rhetoric that led up to this week and reflect on the people who put their lives in harm's way to protect your vote, whether you won or whether you lost. That protected our ability and our right to disagree with each other, to be sitting here in this room right now and have different opinions about what happened, to have the different emotions. I want us to dwell upon the people who stood up a moment ago, who gave us the right to join in spiritual community and explore what oneness really means, even when it's hard. Oneness isn't just a principle when you feel good. Oneness just isn't a principle that we use and we espouse and when we're dancing and joyous and full of light. It's a principle, period. It's a law, period. It's a truth, period. How many people have ever heard the term salt of the earth? Salt of the earth. You know, I heard that as a kid, and the first time I heard it, I thought about veterans, but it didn't make a lot of sense the very first time I heard it. I heard it in Sunday school. I don't know how old I was. Sunday school? Mrs. Trimble was teaching me about the salt of the earth, and my grandpa, Grandpa Buck. Both of them were veterans, by the way. Mrs. Trimble served in the Navy, and my grandfather was a pilot in World War I. Both were salt of the earth. So today, I'm asking you to reflect that veterans are the salt of the earth and have led a way to what we need to implement today, of what we need to cultivate today, of what we need to know about ourselves. Yes? Thank God for Mrs. Trimble and Grandpa Buck for explaining this term to me. I'm going to do my best to explain it. I'm going to take a while to do that. They demonstrated, indeed, as well as word, what it meant to be salt of the earth, and I'm called to follow their example. Today, on this Veterans Day weekend, I want to follow the example that they had, not just in words, but in deeds and in actions, whether I have won or I have lost, whether I am joyous or I am sad. It must remain constant. I must remain true and diligent and devoted as a veteran to the divine idea of a United States, of the oneness in the very movement that we're talking about. We are a unity church, and if we cannot prove it in here, why are we here? I'm saying let's prove it. In the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 5, Matthew, I just love the book of Matthew. It's just, the Sunday school lessons that Mrs. Trimble brought from the book of Matthew were just beautiful. Jesus says this, together, you are the salt of the earth. But if the salt loses its saltiness, how can it be made salty again? First and foremost, a writing like that would have gotten me an F in my college English class. But I really didn't understand it until Mrs. Trimble began to explain to me that salt was an essential, incredibly valuable element during Jesus' time. It was necessary. It was important. Why? Because it preserved, it protected, and it enriched. Preserved, protect, enrich. That sounds a heck of a lot like veterans to me. Jesus' words are inviting us to consider how we, too, can bring goodness into this world, much as salt enriches all that it touches. So the thoughts you're thinking, the feelings you're inviting, and the expressions that you're putting, are they enriching the world? Are they preserving the divine ideas of unity? I don't know. I've heard a lot of conversations for the last 9 months. But we get to ask ourselves the question, what are we preserving? Our right to be angry, to be separate, or the awareness at a spiritual level and truth that we belong to each other? Anybody ever have a pretzel without salt? I see the faces. It just isn't the same. You need the salt to make a pretzel a pretzel. And I think, and somebody said first service, you might want to be careful about using the word saltiness. I want you to define saltiness the way I do. Preserve, protect, and enrich. Anybody ever have a situation where you were in the hospital because you didn't have enough sodium in your body? It's really not so good. And I just love the congregation first service because we do sharing. We swap back and forth. And they came up with a whole list of things that salt does. Somebody said, I'm a baker, and salt is a necessary component for the bread to rise. You have to have the salt or it won't rise. I don't know if that's true or not, but I thought that's where we are. We are calling forth the salt of the earth that is us in order to rise above the murk and the mess that we are in right now as a nation. We are calling us to also melt the iciness of behavior, the iciness of actions. Salt melts ice. I didn't ever think about that when I prepared, but I said I'm going to steal that. And anybody ever been to the Dead Sea? Anybody ever been to the Dead Sea? You get in that water and you're buoyed up. Why? Because it is full of salt. Salt buoys us up. Now, we don't have a Dead Sea here in Marietta, Georgia. But we do have a consciousness that can buoy up, that can rise above, that can add some flavor to enrich and to bring value, to bring meaning, and to find compassion and understanding. That's the saltiness I'm talking about. Salt of the earth, to preserve, protect, and to take care of each other, regardless of our feelings. Have your feelings. But remember, there's a greater charge here today on Veterans Day. In this scripture, Jesus is affirming our value, but he's also laying down the challenge to be the one who uplifts and enriches, to be a veteran of the principles that we teach every week from this platform that are as true today as they were last Sunday and the Sunday before and the next Sunday of the next 4 years. I want you to breathe that in. What's the definition of veteran? Here's one that I found, and I want to espouse this with you. A veteran is a person with a long experience in a particular field. A person with a long experience in a particular field. In Unity, what are we veterans of? We have a lot of experience sitting in these seats. What is it? Call it out. What is your experience of the Unity movement and your participation in it? I want to hear it. Love, understanding. What else? Oneness. What a concept. Oneness. What else? Hope. Peace. Transformation. All of these and more and more and more and more. My list is we are veterans of compassion, equality, understanding, forgiveness. Let our voice be heard. Let's honor our vets by not stifling our voices just because an election was done. But make sure that you are honoring the divine ideas at the center of the Unity movement. I will express in love, in kindness. I'm asking those who feel like their team won this last week to do so with grace and to do with dignity. And I'm asking those that this last week that felt like their team lost, that they do it with grace and peace. Let your voice be heard, but let love guide the discussion. You know, there are many people in this community that are Kansas City Chiefs fans. They love the Kansas City Chiefs. And I love the San Francisco 49ers. And we love to rib each other every time the Kansas City beats the 49ers. Our day is coming. But the reality is, it is fun, light-hearted humor. And perhaps our election is a little bit more serious than a football game. But perhaps we can treat each other with the same level of respect when it's on the gridiron of a football game or it's an election process in the United States of America. Let us be veterans with a long experience of cleansing. That's what salt does. It cleanses. It also heals. Salt heals. It was necessary for healing in Jesus' time. It's necessary in your body for this time. What are we cleansing? We're cleansing the individual consciousness. As we cleanse the individual consciousness, we cleanse the collective consciousness. And if you're doing it out of hate and anger, there's a lot of people going around. I'm here, it makes me laugh. I just hate people who are hateful. I'm so angry with the angry people. Wow. World War III then ensues, and we're a part of it, whether we think we're innocent or not. I hate people who are hateful. Well, what do? You get in, whoa, you don't throw things. That's okay. You can just put it down there. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Let us be veterans with a long experience of cleansing our individual and collective consciousness, and then get busy after we express our truth with healing what needs to be healed. In Unity, we say you got to feel it to heal it. Feel it. Lean into the feeling so that you can get about the business of why we exist as a United States and a unity movement. Collective consciousness needs to be healed. Feel it and heal it, and then let's get busy. Moving past the emotions and getting about the work that we are charged to do. During this election cycle, I want to ask you, how often did we truly stop to cultivate those ideas, or did we lose our salt of the earth spirit? Let's be honest. How many people lost your salt of the earth spirit during this time? I've heard it in every conversation I've had. But what's been beautiful about this community, is that really what you want to say? Is that really what you want to put into the collective? Is that really what you want to add to the United States and to the Unity Church in Marietta? No, it's not. We remind each other, we dip back down into the saltiness of compassion and love, and we remember. If my spiritual path only works when things go my way, it is a house built on very shaky ground. If my spiritual principles only apply, the idea of oneness only applies when I win, then it is a house built on sand, and it will crumble. As I see it, we as a nation have a lot of healing to do right now. The salt is being called from us and as us. And unless we play our role individually, unless we play our role as veterans of what we espouse in this community, veterans of healing, we've lost the salt of the earth that we are. And we're going to end up as a nation described by the second part of that gospel from Matthew. You see, there's a second part when he's saying, you are the salt of the earth. Let's read what Matthew had to write here together. It is no longer good for anything except to be thrown out and trampled underfoot. Some of us sitting here today are afraid. I have family members that are afraid, and I won't go into the details, but they're really, really scared. My grandson is a transgender young man, and he's scared for his life. He's afraid he's going to get thrown out and trampled. And I'm coaching him that if you stay in the fear and you stay in the anger and you stay in the hate and you camp out there, nothing changes except more fear, more anger, and more hate. Go ahead and feel. Feel, Jaden, what you need to feel. And then let's get busy about healing what needs to be healed. I felt the necessary saltiness on Monday night before the election, when this community got together to chant, Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Everybody having a different result in their mind of what was going to happen on Tuesday. But we sat together as the salt of the earth, as veterans of peace, and chanted peace, peace, peace. The salt was moving. The salt was emotional. It was purposeful. It was intentional because there were Republicans in the room, there were Democrats in the room, there were independents in the room, and we allowed ourselves to be veterans of oneness, of healing and preservation. I also felt that same saltiness on Wednesday night after the election when we shared as Republicans, Democrats, and independents our emotions. And they were raw, they were real. And we gave each other permission to express what you need to express. How beautiful we live in a nation where that can happen. Where we can sit in a room together and express the things, but it was done with love. It got on the edge a little bit, but we remembered we belonged to each other. It got a little bit over the edge at times, and we said, no, let's breathe. Let's remember what we are veterans of and what the cause is, what the end result is. At the end of this journey, we belong to each other. And I sat there Wednesday night thinking, Mrs. Trumbull is smiling somewhere. She was the kindest, most loving human being on the planet that I had ever met. I don't know what party she belonged to, but I do know that she was the salt of the earth. And somewhere my grandpa Buck was smiling. I felt his presence on Wednesday night, and it's the same Om Shanti 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 on Monday as it was on Wednesday. If the Om Shanti 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 we were chanting for 100 days leading up to the election was only about winning, don't waste your time anymore. We don't do that in this church. I'm not Om Shanti Shanti Shanting so the 49ers can beat the Kansas City Chiefs. I'm holding a place of peace that must return to the United States, to the planet, and to this community. In the Gospel of Mark, Mark and Matthew often dance with each other. They are telling the same stories with a different bent. In the Gospel of Mark, he echoes Matthew's words, and we get the answer to the question about what we do if we have lost our saltiness before we get thrown out and trampled underfoot. He writes this together: everyone will be salted with fire. Have salt among yourselves and be at peace with each other. We have been through a fire. We're still right smack dab in the midst of a fire. But what fire can do, fire can refine. Fire can bring that remembrance, that great remembrance of who we are and what we are about, bring it to the surface. Ignite the saltiness or ignite the anger. Ignite the salt of the earth quality or ignite the hate. Ignite duality or ignite unity. We have been salted, we have been assaulted. We have been refined, we have been exposed, we have been revealed, and yes, we've been called out, and we're going to continue to call each other out. It's part of the human experience. Fire happens. Say that with me. Fire happens. But we allow the fire to refine our saltiness and do what? Make peace with each other. I don't understand you. Where I sit, I don't understand you, but my job is to make peace with each other. If we want to avoid, as a collective, being trampled underfoot and cast aside, we must make peace with each other in our sadness, in our frustration, in our worry, in our rejoicing, in our relief, in our hope, in our anger. We make peace with each other. We shall then be, as we read in the book of Isaiah, and this is why I'm in ministry today. It's this from the prophet Isaiah. We will be among those who beat our swords into plowshares. We will be among those who beat our spears into pruning hooks. There's a pruning going on of consciousness in the country right now, on all sides of an aisle. There is a pruning of consciousness that must happen. And then we will be called to be the repairers of the breach. And we will be called to be the restorers of the streets. The streets of the United States of America need us to be veterans right now. There's healing needed. Salt is needed. Consciousness is needed. And we must have the guts to create harmony and oneness when we are aching from the inside out, when we are worried and afraid. Even when it is difficult, the same principle applies. Breathe. I wish I could have found the name of this. I read it many, many years ago. I'm going to keep looking, but there is a veteran, a POW, for 7 years, held in Vietnam. He was tortured, he was abused, and he was held in the most horrific of conditions. Thank God he got out. And when he got out, he was interviewed. And the interviewer said, "Were you afraid?" And the man said, "Yes, I was afraid." And then he asked him the next question, "Were you afraid you were going to die?" "No, I was not afraid I was going to die." This man was a Buddhist. And he said, "I was afraid that I would lose the capacity to have compassion for my captors. I was afraid I would lose my capacity to have compassion for my captors." We, as a nation, have been held prisoner to a consciousness. We are a prisoner of the war that has evolved in the conscious state of our country, our democracy, our republic, our need to be right or to be wrong. And I'm saying it's time to break loose of that, and let's find a little bit of compassion for the whole process. The only way we're going to get out of that prison that we are in is more compassion, is more love. It is being the repairer of the breach and the restorer of the streets. I'm asking now that this election is over to go be the salt of the earth. Get busy preserving compassion. Get busy protecting freedom. Get busy using your voice to preserve and heal and love. That honors our vets more than anything I can say from this planet today, is to not give up my right to feel what I want to feel, express what I need to express, and somehow create healing. That honors my grandfather and his service in World War I. That honors Mrs. Trimble, who was and remains the salt of the earth wherever she may be. That honors Sue Ernst, who we celebrated yesterday. That woman, as much as anybody in this community, had the ability to stand back and go, "Isn't this interesting? What's mine to do?" And then she got busy about love. I never saw her once get off center, off kilter. She would always say, and it was a laugh yesterday in the service, "Well, isn't this nice?" I'm not sure that I can say, "Isn't this nice?" right now, but isn't this interesting? And isn't this a call to be a veteran? I'm going to invite the band to come back up. Oh, actually, I'm going to invite Will to come up first. The band can stay there. I'm going to have Will do a song that means the world to me and puts into words exactly everything I've tried to say today. Those who stood up, they're still veterans, and they'll be veterans long after they've left the earth. I'm hoping that each one of us recognizes that you are a veteran of a divine idea. Whatever that divine idea is, give your hold to it. Let it be higher than your anger. Let it be higher than your fear. Let it be at a higher place than your frustration or your need to gloat. I'm going to leave you with a final quote, and then Will's going to sing this song. This is from American theologian and activist Parker Palmer. I absolutely love this man's writing. This quote comes from his book, Healing the Heart of Democracy. And before you get offended with what it says, it was published in 2011. Has nothing to do with the state of our government and our country today, and everything to do with the consciousness that needs to be cultivated in 2011, in 2024, for the next 4 years, for the remainder of this country on earth. This is what he writes. Let's read it together. If American democracy fails, the ultimate cause will not be foreign invasion, the power of big money, the greed and dishonesty of elected officials, a military coup, or internal fascist takeover. It will happen because we have become so fearful of each other, of our differences, that we unravel the civic community on which democracy depends. Breathe that in for a second. We have a choice. We are at choice, folks, to get tossed aside and trampled underfoot, or to share salt with each other and to remember we belong to each other and that peace on earth is the eventual destination. Let us have salt in our community. Let us be at peace with each other, because that is the call of the moment. And as I see it, that is the call of every veteran who stood up in this room. And it is the call of the veterans of the unity movement, whose shoulders we stand upon here. Do not give up your responsibility to be a veteran of love.